Hello there everyone, welcome to another video on the channel, welcome to another Gran Turismo 7 race review opinion piece video where we are going to take a look at Gran Turismo World Series Round 4 from the Nurburgring in the Group 3 cars. And the reason we're taking a look at this race is because if you've seen the community post that I put out on Friday, I think, or Thursday or Friday, before this race went live, I kind of basically said that maybe the changes to the tyre model were a little bit more substantial, or a little bit more of a bigger step in the right direction than I had previously thought, because doing some testing for this race did reveal that there seemed to be a much more kind of noticeable drop off in performance on the soft tyres, which should induce some strategy, should induce the potential to go for undercuts, where you get the benefit of pitting early, getting the softer tyre onto the car, getting some fast lap times in, jumping some cars ahead of you, but then you pay the price at the end with the tyre wear. And so I was curious to see if that's exactly how this race would play out. So I jumped into the 7 o'clock split here. We are in the Jaguar F-Type, we're qualified down in P10, we're in a sea of Porsches it would seem. Every second car in this race appears to be a Porsche. And as we survived turn 1 there, obviously heavy damage is on in this one as well. And as this first lap unfolds, let me tell you kind of how this race would have played out before update 1.49 under the previous tyre wear model. So essentially what would happen is that there would be strategy in it, but it would be more like an illusion of strategy, because everybody would essentially be forced into doing exactly the same thing. The way the tyres worked were that the soft tyres would probably last for about 11 laps, and for those 11 laps they would perform better than the medium tyres. If you went to then try and use them for a further lap, 12 laps, then they would be dead. That's kind of how the tyre worked. And so essentially everybody in a 15 lap race in the Nurburgring here would do 11 laps on the soft tyres and 4 laps on the mediums. There might be a slight variation because people would have different tyre wear rates depending on their driving style and their car, but essentially everybody would do 10-11 laps on the soft tyres and they would do 4 or 5 laps on the medium tyres. And it would give you no potential to really try and do something a little bit different as the race unfolded. If you were stuck behind a gaggle of cars on your medium tyres at the beginning of the race and you were losing 3 seconds a lap, there was nothing you could do. You had to wait until lap 4 or 5 because you couldn't make the soft tyres last any longer than that sort of finite life that they had. They had grip right up until they were all of a sudden dead. And so there was no kind of alternative strategies, there was nothing you could do because you had to wait until lap 4 or 5, but lo and behold, so did every other driver on the grid were waiting until lap 4 and 5. So you would be losing 3 seconds, stuck behind all the cars in front of you, you would all pit on the same lap, and then you'd be stuck in the same gaggle of traffic battling the entire race. You would have the split between people starting on the mediums and the softs, but if you started on the softs you just went to lap 10 and pitted and then came out and did 5 laps on the medium tyres. And so whilst people would say there was strategy in the race, it was more like an illusion of strategy, because if everybody's doing the same thing then there's no strategy. Because if everybody, strategy means try to do something a little bit different, or try to kind of see a gap in like what's going on in the race to try and do a different tactic, if you like, to try and enhance your result, to try and get a better result. With the old tyre wear model prior to 1.49, it wasn't really possible 99% of the time. Occasionally they would luck into something a little bit different where maybe strategy would play a slightly bigger part in the race, but 99% of the time it just wouldn't work out. And it's why racing in Gran Turismo 7 became very one-dimensional. So let's move on to this race here, and I shall try and demonstrate to you why things have changed significantly for the better. So lap 3 here, we've got 8 man ahead of us in the Porsche, 8 Mania ahead of us in the Porsche. And they have had a little bit of a moment here and have got dirty tyres. So I've lost a little bit of time behind them. I know they're going to have dirty tyres going into the chicane here. We go down the inside of them, we make the overtake, and that's going to move us up into P7. So I'm already thinking at this point, I'm on the medium tyres, I'm going to try and go for a little bit of an undercut strategy of some sort. I've got these 2 Porsches ahead of me who have started fighting, I've been catching up with them, and I'm thinking, let's try and go for the early pit stop and see if we can get an undercut on them. Now we do make a mess of the chicane there, which doesn't help us at all, and that allows 8mania to close very much up on us. But we're going to go for the early pit stop here. So with the way the tyres were wearing and what the kind of testing had demonstrated was that your optimal strategy was about 7-8 laps on the soft tyres and 7-8 laps on the medium tyres. We're going a little bit early. We're going in here on lap 10. Now I know that I'm going to get a pace advantage for a couple of laps here because we're going from the mediums onto the soft tyres, and that hopefully should give me the jump on the two cars in front of us if they go for a more optimal strategy. But I also know that I'm going to pay the price at the end of this race now, because the soft tyres actually have a much more significant drop off in pace than what they did prior to the update. So there is a risk reward to the strategy here, and that is, well, let's be honest, that's exactly the way it should be. So jumping forward here to the start of lap 9, we're going to have 8mania making their pit stop there. That was the Porsche that was right behind of us, and we have not only, well, we were ahead of them, but we've now opened a gap of about 2 seconds to them. Now we never did a very good job on our soft tyres, to be perfectly honest with you. We should have been doing low 56s, maybe even threatening the 55s, but we had a couple of moments on both of our first laps there on the soft tyres. But regardless, we have managed to open up a gap of about 2 seconds to the Porsche that was right behind us when we pitted. But more importantly, we've also jumped a couple of cars as well. And so as all the pit stops unfold, as we jump forward here to lap 12, we're up in P6. Not too shabby at all. We've done a pretty good job of keeping that gap to 8mania as well, but our tyres are now starting to get towards that 45-50% marker. And as we fast forward our way through this lap, you're going to see that gap's going to start coming down. So 8mania also on the soft tyres now, having made the kind of more optimal strategy, is now starting to reap the reward of having those better tyres, and we are now starting to struggle a little bit, to the extent that we let the pressure get us a little bit there. We make a little bit of a mistake into the Schumacher S, and we pick up a half-second penalty, and we pick up dirty tyres on top of that as well. So coming into the back straight here, I know I've got a penalty, I know I've got dirty tyres. I'm not serving the penalty on this lap, but and I also know that 8mania is a lot faster than me, so we go wide here through the curve of the back straight, but the Jaguar just has too much pace over the Porsche in a straight line. But we let 8mania go down the inside there, and a kind of carbon copy of exactly what happened between two of us a few laps ago. We also then have a moment coming out of the chicane as well, and this, I was thinking, had completely ruined my strategy, because that probably overall cost of that moment and the penalty we've got was going to be around about 3 seconds, and we'd kind of used the undercut to get quite far down the track from some of the cars that we were racing around. But losing 3 seconds was definitely not very good at all. So we served that half-second penalty. Thankfully, the Spanish driver behind us also served a half-second penalty, and also, more crucially, the Spanish driver behind us, despite having slightly better tyres, is also carrying front bumper damage, so they're a little bit slower than they would normally be, and I was quite confident I could hold that driver behind me. So as I seen the two drivers behind us battling down the straight, that's why we moved to try and give the Spanish driver the slipstream, because I want to keep them ahead of the cars behind them, because they've all got much better tyres than me at this point. And we've got that kind of exactly what we're looking for. You know, we have got the strategy where I've went for the risky undercut strategy, used the fresh tyres to jump those cars that are behind me, and now I'm getting chased down with them on the better tyres. It's very much like what Gran Turismo Sport used to be like, and very much what early Gran Turismo 7 used to be like when we had these multiple tyre compound races. Going back to the race here, we are still in the old P1 would you expect anything less, but we have now got a new challenger behind us. You may have seen in the kind of little insert there that the two drivers behind us definitely had a little bit of a falling out, let's just say, and they've taken each other out into the last corner, and that has allowed the German in the white Porsche that we jumped earlier on to move into P8, and now they are catching us rapidly. Now, I thought they were probably just on better soft tyres than me, but it turns out they're actually on really good mediums. And again, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for, if you run the softs for a long time, you know, you go for that big undercut like I did, the softs, I mean, they're not completely dead. We still have a good bit of tread on them, but we have that crossover now where the driver behind us on their medium tyres is faster than us. Their medium tyres are better than our soft tyres. This is just something that never happened prior to 1.49 and after 1.20. I must say, I am very happy to see how this race unfolded. It's exactly what I kind of thought, having done the testing. I definitely underestimated in the previous video just how much of a step forward the tyre wear model had made. It does look like it's back to something very close to the original tyre wear model, and that's going to make for much more interesting races in Daily Race C. It's going to see a big reintroduction of strategy. It's going to see undercuts. It's going to see strategies converging towards the end of the race. I must admit, I'm very happy that this is the case. Wasn't quite obvious from the Bathurst race, to be perfectly honest with you, because the penalty of changing the tyres was so small at Bathurst. It's only 1.4 seconds to change the tyres, so why would you not change the tyres? Very, very few people, or very, very few times were people kind of doing the no tyre change strategy, so it probably hadn't quite manifested itself, or I hadn't quite witnessed it as much after the change, after the update at Bathurst, but it does seem that we have everything that we need in the tyre wear model to make for strategy races and to make for interesting finishes to races, because this is what Gran Turismo 7 should be. This is what Daily Race C should be. This is what GTWS races should be. It was the unique selling point. It's what kind of differentiated Gran Turismo from other sim racers out there who basically their half an hour races are just sprint races and boring, dare I say, and like watching paint dry to watch because the drivers qualify in fastest drivers order, and then the gap just open up as the half an hour race goes on. There was no strategy, there was no tyre wear, there was no other variables to kind of induce some interest in the race. Gran Turismo 7 and GT Sport always had that. They lost it for a long time. I think they've got it back, and I'm pleased with that. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.